Hey everyone, it's Katherine Egley here to share my top 10 favorite books of 2022 and books that I hope that you will read in 2023 if you haven't read them yet. Let me start with Take Back Your Life by Levi Lusko. This is a 40-day devotional, and every chapter is encouraging, inspiring, full of true stories, and it helps you to shift your mindset and some of your actions to be a better version of you. So this would be a great book to start 2023 with. A fiction I read last year that I loved, it was a novel called Becoming Mrs. Lewis by Patti Callahan. And if you're a C.S. Lewis fan, you'll love this book. It's a novel written based on true events, taken some of the letters that are written between C.S. Lewis and his wife. It tells about their courtship, how they met, how they developed a friendship, and were later married. But it's a fascinating story, a beautiful love story that I recommend that you listen to the audiobook, which is free on the Hoopla app. It's really well done. So, Becoming Mrs. Lewis by Patti Callahan. The third book I want to recommend to you today is The Power of Place by Daniel Grothe. This is his second book. He's a phenomenal teacher, speaker, and writer. There's so much wisdom packed in here about the impact that we can make no matter where we call home. So he tells some true stories in here and great stuff on marriage and moving. And so I love this, full of wisdom and truth. Great book for 2023. Another true story is Hiding in the Light. And this is about a girl who converted from Islam to Christianity. And what I loved about this book is that I grew up a Christian, and sometimes I take it for granted. And as a new believer, she gave me insight into how much freedom and how much goodness there is in our Christian faith. And it was such a beautiful story and also a hard to read story. But I loved this book, Hiding in the Light. A fiction story that I read this year with my son. He's 12. He was 12 when we were reading this, Home of the Brave. It's a very quick read. If you're reading it on your own, you could read it in one setting. We took a few days to read it. But it's the story of this boy, Keck, who moves from Africa to Minnesota. And it's fun to read and really eye-opening and interesting how life is so different in Africa, where he came from, in a small village, to the busy life of Minnesota. A lot of power packed in just a few words. So I definitely recommend you read this, and ideally with your maybe middle school, upper elementary, middle school, or even high school children. Nonfiction true story that I read that I loved was The Choice by Dr. Edith Eger. She was a prisoner in Auschwitz, a concentration camp during Nazi Germany, and she survived, and then talks about how she still lived in a prison of her mind even after she got out of the prison in Nazi Germany, and tells her story of becoming a doctor, becoming a mother, and how she worked through the struggles of anxiety and depression and so many struggles that women and those of us in America and probably around the world face. And I loved her advice and her encouragement and her steps. Very practical, beautiful story. This was a fiction book I read with my then 14-year-old son. We had never read any books by Alan Gratz. We both agreed after we finished this that he is a great writer. So my son and I felt like we were in the Twin Towers on 9/11, and we really got to experience what that might have felt like or been like and what they went through. A small portion of what they went through, obviously. So I would recommend this book that you read with maybe your middle school or high school students. Fantastic story, Ground Zero by Alan Gratz. Another nonfiction that I loved and read this year was called Everything Sad is Untrue by Daniel Nayeri. And it's a true story written by Daniel from a perspective of like a middle school boy moving from Iran to the U.S. as an immigrant. And it really opens my eyes to what they might be experiencing, what they've gone through, and it gives me a whole new appreciation. So this book was educational and a beautiful story. It was funny and there was sad parts, but a great book. I highly recommend it. Another true story. Can you tell that I like memoirs and biographies? They're my favorite. So this one is Fostered by Tori Hope Peterson. And Tori grew up as a foster child in the foster care system. And she tells her story, which was hard and had some really beautiful parts as well. And now she is working to bring positive changes into the foster care system. So this is a fantastic story, easy to read. And if you care about children, if you're a teacher, or you are interested in learning more about the foster care system, I recommend this book. And finally, my favorite book of the year was I Guess I Haven't Learned That Yet by Shauna Niequist. I've met her a couple times, and I love the way she writes, and very easy to read stories of her life. Every chapter is like a story from her life and what she's learning in that story. So this is beautiful. I really resonated with it because she moved to New York around the same time we moved to Minnesota. So I could connect with kind of some of what she's going through, and I've been following her story. And the two books that I gifted most this year were Take Back Your Life by Levi Lesko and I Guess I Haven't Learned That Yet by Shauna Niequist. Both are excellent books, really powerful. And if I'm going to pick a third, The Power of Place by Daniel Grothe. Those are probably my top three, but every one of those 10 books is an awesome book. At KatherineEgley.com, I give a monthly highlight of what I'm reading with a review of each book. So I appreciate you taking the time to watch this today. Feel free to share with me what you're reading or a book that you've loved that you think I should read. I appreciate your time today, and have a great day. Bye, you guys.